Hi, I'm Lawrence. I was always told to get a degree and a job at a good company, but just 3 years into my safe job, I was retrenched and left broke. That idea no longer works. Instead of one job, we need to be focusing on multiple streams of income. As a full-time property investor and coach, my goal is to educate you and other South Africans to reach financial freedom through property. Let's get started.
This concept of rent to rent. Now, the rent to rent strategy is very interesting because it doesn't require a lot of capital. In fact, it actually requires probably the least amount of capital than any of the other rental strategies. The concept is really simple. The idea is that you rent from a landlord at a certain price, let's call it 10,000 Rand, and then you sublet the house to a couple of other tenants, and what you sublet it for is higher than what you're paying the current landlord. So it's essentially like you're renting this property that you can see on the screen, but you're only taking one room and you're renting out the other 5 rooms, and you essentially cover your rent that way. So it's you can kind of think of it like a subletting strategy. It's completely legal as long as the landlord is aware of it and there's signed agreements in place. The only difficult thing about this deal is it's hard to find. It's hard to execute. So I found an example of a potential one in Westville, Durban. So here we can see that this is in an area called Westville, which is pretty close to the University of KZN. It's 6 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, it's 1,200 square meters, it's massive. So if we just look here, you've got a beautiful massive kitchen, you've got lots of space. All of these rooms, you can obviously create a shared room, like a TV room for your students, but you could also, change this up and put 2 extra students in here. So if you're clever with how you creatively maneuver this property, you could probably fit more than 6 students in here. You could probably, I would say you could probably put about 12 students in here. I mean, there's even a bar area, which I'm sure the students would love. There's one of the bedrooms, nice and clean. What you could do here, because this bedroom looks quite large, is you could put a little panel. What do they call it? Not permanent drywall. Is it drywalling? I think so. You can put a drywall in there and partition this one bed into 2 small rooms, and you could put 2 students in this one bedroom. That's quite possible. You could convert this room, which seems to be an office, I would imagine. You could probably put another partitioning in here and put 2 or 3 students in there. This office space can be refined into student accommodation again. So I'm seeing lots of potential here for multiple students. It seems like wide open spaces. This is the kind of opportunity where a rent-to-rent would work really well. Now, when you're analyzing a rent-to-rent, it's always a bit difficult. Okay, so the first thing we've got to do is we've got to work out what we would be subletting it for. So I see 6 rooms that could easily cater for 12 students. So if I go 12 times 3,250, which is the rate at which NSFAS gives out student accommodation or pays for student accommodation, you could probably make about 39,000 Rand in terms of rental from your tenants. But you're only paying 16 to the landlord. So if we say 39,000 minus 16,000, that means that our cash flow will be 23,000 Rand minus additional expenses. Now, what does that mean? Well, all of these expenses, like your rates and taxes, your levies, your water, your electricity, your insurance, all of that will be paid for by you. That's part of the rent-to-rent agreement. So let's say that the levies, the rates and taxes are 1,500. You also need to pay for the water and electricity of all 12 students. So if they're all spending, let's say 300 Rand per month, times that by 12, you've got 3,600. So you minus that. You also need to pay for the maintenance. You need to pay for any vacancies. You need to pay for the management, all of those things. So let's say another, 5,000 Rand goes towards that. You'll need to pay for insurance, another 1,000 Rand on that. I think you get the point, right? So what you need to do is start with what can I sublet it for, minus what I'm renting it for, minus all of the costs associated to that, and I'm left with what my potential cash flow could be. So what we're seeing here is that, assuming my numbers are correct, and I kind of did just guess them, so please don't quote me on it, but we could probably walk away with about a 12,000 Rand cash flow on this property just because we were able to cleverly maneuver a property of 6 bedrooms into 12 student accommodation units. Does that make sense? This is a very, very powerful strategy. If we wanted to work out the return on investment, so let's just remember 12,000 as our cash flow. The strategy of rent to rent usually requires 3 months deposit. So if we say 16,000 times 3, that's what we're going to have to pay the landlord as a deposit to be able to rent from them. Plus, we're going to have to pay for the renovations to repurpose the property into a student accommodation. I would say, based on what I'm seeing there's quite a lot of work, lots of partitioning, repurposing the property to fit a student accommodation vibe. You're probably looking at about 200,000. So, although I did say in the beginning that rent to rent doesn't really require a lot of capital, it depends how much work you need to put in order to repurpose the property to be fit for your subletting strategy. Because I'm targeting students, and because students need beds, they need furniture, they need space, etc., it's going to be quite a costly thing. So if we say 12,000, which is our cash flow, times that by 12, actually, sorry, I'm going to say 12,000, I'm going to times it by 10, because remember, students don't always rent for the full 12 months. So I'm rather going to work on a 10-month assumption. Divided by 250,000 Rand is our capital contribution, times 100 means our return on investment will be 48%. Which basically means that within 2 years, we pay back our original 250,000, and the rest is pure profit. So guys, that's an example, a very sexy example and a fun example of a rent to rent, where you rent from a landlord, you sublet to other tenants, and you live off the difference.
Are you tired of having more month at the end of your money? It's time to venture into property investing. And although it may seem scary, don't worry. We've created tons of resources to help you get started. From tools that help you analyze deals, to online training courses, to one-on-one specialized coaching. Click the link in the comments below and get started today.